I never expected a cultural misunderstanding to create such tension in my friendship group. When I saw my white male friend wearing my homeland's traditional attire in a video, my heart warmed, because in my culture, it's an honor when outsiders wear our clothes. It shows respect, curiosity, and appreciation. So imagine my surprise when my African-American friend blew her top, calling him a colonizer, claiming he was appropriating our culture, and insisting he remove the garments. She acted outraged on my behalf, but I wasn't offended at all. Instead, I felt frustrated and bewildered. Why was she angry for me more than I was for myself? That's where we landed. Me wanting harmony and understanding. Her convinced she was defending me but crossing a line with her tone and assumptions. When I tried to explain how welcomed it actually was, she ignored my voice and doubled down with judgment. Now I'm stuck asking myself, am I the asshole for finally pushing back and saying, drop it? Your outrage is more offensive than his wearing it. And after talking face to face, knowing she still thinks I'm naive or deluded, the relationship feels fractured. So that's my dilemma, respecting others' perspectives but also defending my own identity and agency. Will calling her out make me the bad guy? Or is it justified to stand up for what I feel and what my culture actually embraces? I'm a 26-year-old woman of Asian descent, raised in a multicultural environment. My core friend group spans diverse backgrounds: white, black, Latinx, Asian, and more. We socialize frequently with little friction, sharing meals, movies, and meaningful conversations. Until recently, we never had a real conflict over race or culture. One of my white male friends decided to take several months off to travel through Asia, including a visit to my home country. There, he participated in local events and accepted invitations to wear traditional attire, light, elegant, and well-suited to the climate. He continued wearing that clothing even afterward, simply because it felt comfortable and respectful. Personally, I was delighted. In my culture, when a foreigner wears our traditional garments, it's seen as a sign of respect, curiosity, and cultural celebration. It symbolizes an appreciation, not appropriation, for what our ancestors created. I was proud to share my cultural heritage in that way. Most friends from my origin country, both here and back home, wholeheartedly embraced him for it. But some of my African-American friends reacted very differently. They were vocal, accusing him of cultural appropriation, privilege, even colonizing my culture by borrowing the clothing without being one of us. I stepped in to explain how my own culture feels, that this was not offensive but rather encouraging, especially when done respectfully. After my explanation, most of them apologized. But one person, let's call her Tina, didn't back down at all. Tina refused to drop the topic. In our group chat and in the video comments, she repeatedly labeled him a colonizer and a white privileged appropriator. She insisted that because he is white, he had no business wearing our traditional clothes, even if he wore them respectfully and at the invitation of local hosts. When I reminded her of my personal experiences, and those of my community who saw the gesture as positive, she dismissed it. She accused me of being brainwashed by white culture or not truly aware of historical oppression. Despite my pleas, she refused to consider the perspective of someone from that culture, insisting that her emotional response was more valid. Her continued criticism began to upset me. It felt like she was speaking over me and about my identity, yet refusing to listen, forming her own assumptions instead. At this point, I realized it wasn't just a difference of opinion. It became a power struggle over whose feelings and authority matter more. I debated whether to go private and attempt a calm conversation, but after too many dismissals, I decided something had to change. I was heading towards saying, "Your outrage is more offensive than his wearing it," and preparing to back it up. I felt a swirl of emotions. Neutrality turned to hurt, and hurt turned into frustration. Did I feel offended? Absolutely not. But being told I'm naive or ignorant about my own heritage did sting. Regret? No. Defensiveness? Yes. I did the responsible thing. I tried again to explain respectfully. This is how our tradition works. It's meant to be shared by people who appreciate it. but every attempt felt like hitting a wall. Her accusations included phrases like, "You've been erased by whiteness," or "You're complicit when you defend this," effectively silencing my lived experience. That wasn't okay. It wasn't a matter of tone or misunderstanding anymore. It became a dismissive denial of my voice. It felt emotionally violent to have my identity repeatedly invalidated by someone who hadn't experienced the culture itself. In that moment, I made two decisions. I would speak my truth firmly and calmly. I would set a clear boundary. If she continued, I would begin to distance myself. That boundary needed to come from a place of self-respect, not aggression. After speaking up, I reached out to a few close friends, not to gather opinions, but to check my own perspective. Their responses were overwhelmingly supportive. An Indian friend said, "No one gets to do moral outraging on your behalf without your permission." A white friend affirmed that cultural context and the wearer's intention are crucial, not skin color alone. Another friend called out the dismissiveness. If she really supported cultural diversity, she'd listen to you. Yet some urged nuance. A couple friends gently suggested that Tina's reaction may come from her own personal or historical sensitivities. One black friend explained, "It's valid for her to feel protective, but not to silence you." I also spoke with another black friend. She acknowledged Tina's sensitivity but said, "It's incredibly disrespectful to dismiss the voice of someone from that culture. Tina needs to learn humility." Most agreed my boundary was fair. If keeping this friendship required silencing and ignoring me, that wasn't a friendship anymore, it was control. I'm now left questioning. Am I the asshole for saying, "Your outrage is more offensive than his wearing it"? And considering distancing myself? I didn't want drama. I just wanted my cultural perspective to be heard. I wanted my people's voice, rooted in lived experience, to matter more than someone's assumptions. No one is denying systemic injustice. But when I, a person from the culture in question, say I'm not offended, should my voice take priority? So Reddit, AITA for speaking up so strongly, setting a boundary, considering walking away from a friendship where my identity is consistently invalidated. Was I too harsh, or was it time to stand up for myself and my heritage? I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd have to defend herself against a baby trap accusation, especially not from my own husband, and especially not 6 years after the fact. It's one of those terms people throw around online like a joke, a meme, a punchline in some internet drama. It's not something I ever expected to hear in real life, much less directed at me, in public, by the person I've built my life with. But that's exactly what happened last week. We were out at dinner with a group of relatively new friends, good vibes, light drinks, casual conversation. Nothing intense. And then, in the middle of some story that had nothing to do with us, my husband made a joke. One that caught everyone off guard, especially me. He said something along the lines of, "Yeah, well, I got baby trapped, so I didn't have a choice," and laughed. The whole table went quiet. I remember the moment like a freeze frame. The clink of cutlery, the half-smile on someone's face dying mid-expression, the slight, awkward cough someone made to cover the silence. And me? I just stared at him, wondering if I'd heard right, or if I'd stepped into some alternate version of our life where everything I thought I knew was suddenly off. To really understand why his comments stung so deeply, you'd have to know a bit about our history, how we got here, and how much we've been through together. I met my husband when we were teenagers. I was 15, he was 16, and we basically grew up side by side. We started dating young, went through all the awkward, messy stages of adolescence together, graduation stress, family fights, part-time jobs, everything. And despite all that, we stayed close. We weren't just boyfriend and girlfriend, we were each other's constants. When I was 19, I found out I was pregnant. It was a complete shock. I had been on long-term birth control, the arm implant, which was supposed to be over 99% effective. But life, as we learned that day, doesn't always follow statistics. We hadn't planned for a baby. We were still figuring out college, still living in a property owned by my parents. We didn't have savings. He didn't even have a license at the time. But we sat down, talked, and decided to keep the baby. Scared but committed. To his credit, he didn't run. He stayed. And together, we navigated that wild, blurry year of becoming parents at 19. We learned how to swaddle, how to survive 3 a.m. feedings, how to deal with unsolicited advice from everyone with a Facebook account. We got married 3 years later. Since then, we've had 2 more kids. Bought a home, using my savings for the deposit, and built a chaotic but beautiful life together. I adore our kids. I love our little family, and I've always believed that he does too. That's why his joke hit so hard. Because for the past 6 years, I thought we were in this together. I thought we'd built something strong, something real. We never even fought about that first pregnancy. It was unexpected, but never once did he accuse me of trapping him. Until now, it felt like all the trust we'd built, every long night, every shared milestone, was suddenly undermined by a single sentence in front of people who barely knew us. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. So casual, so flippant, like it was some kind of joke he'd told a dozen times before. We were halfway through dinner, talking about relationships and parenthood. One of our new friends had just announced she was pregnant. Everyone was laughing, sharing light stories, and that's when my husband leaned back in his chair, took a sip of his beer and said it. "Yeah, well, I didn't have much choice. I got baby trapped." He laughed. I didn't, and neither did anyone else at the table. My head snapped toward him. I honestly thought I'd misheard at first. But no, he was looking straight ahead like he hadn't just dropped a grenade in the middle of the conversation. I asked, "What did you just say?" He glanced at me, shrugged, and repeated it. I mean, come on, it was a little suspicious, wasn't it? We were fine for 4 years, and suddenly you're pregnant. Out of nowhere. The silence that followed was deafening. Our friends didn't know what to say. One of them coughed and awkwardly tried to change the subject. But it was too late. The atmosphere had shifted. I felt my heart thudding in my chest. My hands were shaking a little as I replied. "So let me get this straight. You think I baby trapped you? For what exactly? Your money? Because you and your family were broke back then. For your car? You didn't even have a driver's license. For your house? We were living in one of my parents' properties." He didn't respond, just stared at his plate. The table went dead quiet. Someone nervously took a bite of food, and I could feel the secondhand discomfort radiating off everyone. Eventually, someone changed the topic, and the conversation slowly limped forward. But I wasn't really present anymore. My thoughts were spiraling. I couldn't stop thinking, is that what he's always thought? Has he believed all this time that I manipulated him into fatherhood? Into marriage? And if he didn't, why would he say something so damaging? Maybe he was tipsy. Maybe it was just a poorly timed, tasteless attempt at humor. But even so, you don't joke like that about the person you chose to marry. Not in front of others. Not when you've shared so much life together. The car ride home was dead silent. I didn't know whether I should be angry or just sad. Part of me felt betrayed. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a terrible joke. A thoughtless, offhand remark. But no matter how I tried to frame it, those words lingered in my mind like a bruise. Later that night, after we put the kids to bed, I confronted him. "Do you really think I baby trapped you?" He sighed, avoiding my eyes. "No, I don't know. It just always felt weird. We were together for 4 years, we were careful, and then out of nowhere, you were pregnant. I never brought it up before, but it's something that always sat funny with me." I felt something inside me twist. "So for all these years, you've been secretly doubting me?" I asked. He didn't respond, just shrugged. I sat there stunned, trying to make sense of it. We had built a family. 3 kids, a house, a life, and yet somehow the foundation felt shakier than I thought. Yes, I fired back at dinner. Yes, I embarrassed him, but I don't regret it. He made a public comment that put me in an awful position. If he couldn't take the heat after throwing a jab like that, maybe he shouldn't have said it at all. I did apologize afterward, for snapping in front of our friends. He apologized, too, for the joke and clarified to everyone that he didn't mean it seriously. But something in me had shifted, because even if it was just a joke, Even if he didn't truly mean it, part of me will always wonder why he said it in the first place. After that night, things between us turned strangely quiet. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just shut down. Short answers. Polite distance. Like we were housemates co-managing a family rather than a married couple who used to finish each other's sentences. I tried to break the silence. Small talk, shared chores, even jokes, but it felt like speaking into a void. For a few days, I wondered if I was the one who had gone too far. Had I overreacted? But then the messages started coming in. One friend from dinner texted me, "Hey, are you okay?" That comment from him. Not cool at all. Another messaged, "Honestly, I don't blame you for how you responded. If my husband said that in front of people, I'd have snapped too." Those words grounded me, reminded me that I wasn't alone in how I felt, that what happened was out of line. What stung most wasn't just the joke, though. It was his unwillingness to address it afterward. The way he withdrew, making me feel like the aggressor. The way he acted like I had embarrassed him, when he was the one who'd made a deeply personal accusation in front of near strangers. Eventually, I sat him down. I told him I needed him to talk to me, not around me. That's when he admitted it. He'd meant it as a joke. That he didn't truly believe I tricked him. That he was tipsy and let his mouth run faster than his brain. He apologized again, this time more genuinely. I accepted it, but the damage was done. Not irreparable, but not invisible either. These friends of ours, newer friends, now had this odd, fractured view of us. They didn't know the backstory. They didn't know our first child was a surprise. They only saw a man accusing his wife of baby trapping him, and a wife who clapped back with cold, cutting logic. And no matter how much we smiled later, the tension hung in the air. Now that some time has passed, I keep circling back to that night. I've apologized for embarrassing him. He's apologized for the comment. We've moved on, at least on the surface. But deep down, I still wonder, did I go too far? I didn't say what I said to be cruel. I said it because I was blindsided, because I felt exposed, because the person I thought had always trusted me just made me feel like a liar in front of people who barely know me. I didn't trap him. I got pregnant while using long-term birth control, something entirely out of my control. But I took responsibility. I carried the pregnancy, I helped raise our family, I contributed financially. I didn't trap anyone. I showed up. I stayed. I built a life with him. So yes, I fired back. I matched sarcasm with sarcasm. I held up a mirror and asked him if he liked the reflection. He didn't. Now he says I hurt his pride. But what about mine? So Reddit, AITA for clapping back at my husband in front of our friends after he joked that I baby trapped him? I didn't think hosting a birthday party for my 6-year-old son would turn into a mini parenting scandal. But apparently, some people think I crossed a line by offering Coke and cookies. When you throw a party for a bunch of 6-year-olds, you expect a little chaos. Sugar highs, loud games, messy cake faces. It's part of the charm. But what I didn't expect was to be called irresponsible by other parents who didn't even stick around long enough to see what was being served. The way I see it, if you drop your kid off at a party and don't say anything about food restrictions, allergies, or boundaries, you're implicitly trusting the host to make reasonable choices. And I genuinely thought we did. We had a variety of snacks, drinks, and treats. Nothing outrageous. Just kid-friendly, standard birthday stuff. But now I'm hearing whispers from a couple of parents, acting like I sent their kids home with a bag of cocaine instead of a cupcake and a can of soda. So now I'm wondering, did I make a mistake? Or are some people just expecting the world to parent their kids for them? My son just turned 6, and like most 6-year-olds, all he wanted was a fun party with his friends, balloons, games, and cake. We decided to host it at a local park. Easy access, lots of space to run around, and a few picnic tables to set everything up. I went with a pretty standard setup. Some balloons, a few lawn games, a piñata, and a fold-out table covered with snacks. We had kid-friendly options, mini sandwiches, fruit slices, cookies, lollies, and a birthday cake shaped like a dinosaur, his favorite. For drinks, we offered water, juice boxes, and yes, some cans of Coke. I know Coke is a bit of a gray area for some parents. That's why it wasn't pushed on anyone. I set everything out buffet style and the kids could choose. When any child reached for a Coke, I asked, "Are you allowed to have this?" Every single one of them said yes.
No hesitación.
No kid mentioned allergies, no one seemed unsure. So I let them have it. My son, ironically, doesn't even like fizzy drinks. He's stuck with water and a bit of juice. He doesn't like overly sweet things either, so I didn't even think much about the sugar content until later. The whole thing lasted about 2 hours. Parents dropped their kids off, waved a quick hello, and disappeared. Only 2 parents stuck around, one of whom I knew fairly well and who said everything looked great. The rest didn't ask about food, drinks, or even who else would be there. They just dropped and dashed. I assumed that meant they were comfortable and trusted us. After all, we weren't strangers. We all know each other from the same school network. I've been to parties where far more sugary treats were handed out. Compared to those, I thought we were pretty tame. But I guess not everyone saw it that way. It started with a message in the class parents group chat. One mom casually mentioned that her son had been bouncing off the walls all evening after the party, and joked that whoever gave them Red Bull disguised as Coke owes me a new couch. At first, I thought it was just playful banter, so I laughed it off and even replied, "Haha, I swear it was just Coke and cupcakes." But the tone changed quickly. Another parent chimed in with, "I didn't know they were going to be drinking soft drinks. I would have preferred a heads up." Then someone else, "My daughter said she had Coke and 3 cookies. I wouldn't have allowed that." Suddenly, I was the irresponsible party host who pumped their kids full of sugar and didn't even ask for permission. What baffled me most was that these were the same parents who hadn't even said hello at the party. They just dropped off their kids, didn't ask about the menu, and left without a second thought. No one gave me a list of dietary restrictions. No one said their child wasn't allowed soft drinks. And every kid who grabbed a Coke said they were allowed to have it. What was I supposed to do? Interrogate them? Call each parent mid-party for approval? One mom even said I should have known better and called it bad judgment. That stung. I don't see myself as careless. I planned, prepped, and hosted the party solo. I made sure there were balanced options, that nothing was forced on any kid, and that everyone had fun. Yet somehow, I was now the villain for offering what's pretty standard party fare. And the worst part? None of them had said anything at the party itself. Not one word of concern, not even a passing comment. If it had really been a big deal, why wait until afterward to start the complaints? In a group chat, no less? I'll be honest, at first I felt defensive. Really defensive. I'd spent my entire weekend organizing this party. Blowing up balloons at midnight, lugging folding tables to the park, wiping sticky faces, and making sure every kid had a turn at the piñata. I didn't do it for praise, but I sure didn't expect to be scolded afterward like some kind of reckless babysitter. The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became. Not one of those parents had asked what food or drinks would be served. Not one gave me any list of do's and don'ts. I'm not a mind reader, and I'm not a trained childcare provider. I'm just a parent doing their best to host a nice birthday for my kid. I even went back through my texts and invitations to double-check. No dietary questions, no special instructions, nothing. And yet, somehow, I was now the problem. But then I took a breath. I reminded myself that not every parent will parent the same way. Some are stricter about sugar. Some think fizzy drinks are the devil. That's fine. I'm not judging anyone else's rules. But if you care that much about what your child consumes, then you either stay and supervise or you communicate that beforehand. I didn't make any drastic announcements in the group chat. I didn't defend myself aggressively or call anyone out. I just sent one calm message. Totally understand if some of you have strong preferences about what your kids eat/drink. Next time, I'm happy to coordinate more closely. But I do want to mention that everything at the party was optional, and no one raised any concerns on the day. I wanted to be clear but not confrontational, because even though I was hurt, I didn't want to escalate things further. I just needed to draw a line kindly but firmly. After I sent that message to the group chat, things got quiet. No one replied for a few hours, which, in parent group chat terms, is an eternity. I started second-guessing myself. Did I come off too passive-aggressive? Was I making it worse by bringing it up again, even if I kept it polite? But then a message popped up from one of the moms who had actually stayed at the party. She wrote, "For what it's worth, I thought everything at the party was great. The kids had fun, there were plenty of options, and you clearly put a lot of effort into it. I wouldn't change a thing. That small show of support was a relief." Then another dad chimed in privately, saying he didn't see what the big deal was and that, if parents are that strict about what their kids eat, they should probably stick around next time. A few more messages trickled in, neutral to supportive. One mom said she appreciated the follow-up message and would be sure to communicate dietary stuff next time. Another sent a thumbs-up emoji, which felt like the quiet parent chat version of, "I got your back." But there were still a couple who stayed silent, the ones who had complained the loudest before. I don't know if they felt embarrassed or just doubled down in private, but either way, they didn't respond. Maybe that's for the best. The real validation came from my son, though. That night, as I tucked him into bed, he said, "Thanks for the best birthday ever, Mommy." And he meant it. He wasn't bouncing off the walls. He wasn't sick from too much sugar. He was just tired, happy, and grateful. And honestly, that's what mattered most. I didn't throw the party for the parents. I threw it for the kids. And judging by the giggles, frosting-covered smiles, and tiny hands batting at balloons all afternoon, I think I did just fine. Now that it's over, I keep replaying the whole thing in my head. I know parenting comes with different philosophies, some stricter, some more relaxed. I try not to judge anyone for how they raise their kids, but I also think it's unfair to be blamed for something I was never warned about. If a parent had told me, "Hey, no Coke for my kid," I absolutely would have honored that. If someone had stayed and said, "Please limit sweets," I would have done my best. But when you drop your child off without a word, don't check in, and don't leave any instructions, can you really expect someone else to micromanage every bite they take? I don't think I went overboard. I wasn't handing out energy drinks or letting them run wild unsupervised. It was just a birthday party, with cake, cookies, some soda, and a whole lot of fun. I wasn't trying to parent anyone else's child. I was just trying to give mine a happy birthday. So Reddit, AITA for letting kids at my son's party eat and drink what they wanted. Even though some parents are now upset about it,